So there is a difference between a manager and a leader. The manager is somebody who tells somebody to do something. The leader is the one that says, let's go do it together. Let me show you how to do this. I don't care how many times I have to show you. We're going to do it together over and over and over again.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy with Jason. I'm actually excited to do this one. It's been a little while. I've been trying to connect with this infamous person for some time. No, he hasn't been avoiding me. He hasn't, but he's in a great position now where he can actually sit down and we can jam about anything and everything we want to jam about when it comes to the automotive industry. Today, I have the one, the only, the oh so famous Mr. Ben Freedman with me. Ben, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Jason? How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad we do this. I know we've talked about trying to do it a couple times, so I'm super glad that that you're in a position now where we can do this. This is fun. This is going to be.
If you think you're excited, I'm super pumped. It's been, like you said, I think this has been a couple of years in the making, and obviously being respectful to people, we just weren't able to make it happen. Now we're able to make it happen. So as you said, let's jam.
I know it's going to be good. I like we're very like-minded. We love we love the automotive industry. I know we both come from the automotive industry, so that's where I kind of want to kick off our podcast today is with a little origin story. Because Ben, I'm always fascinated, right? Because no one just wakes up one day and goes, yeah, I know where I'm going to spend majority of my life. Automotive. That sounds great.
I don't think anybody does. I think it's a calling.
It is a calling. So let's get started there. Let's kick off with the origin story of how you got started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So it's a super cool story. I love telling it. And again, Jason, thanks for inviting me on today. So I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, born and raised in Portland, Oregon, moved to Seattle when I was a kid, went to culinary school. So I'm a culinary student by background, did some time in the mortgage industry when times were awesome. And I left my career in the mortgage industry, decided I was going to take a couple months off and just hang out. I was getting the elevator of the apartment building that I was living in Tacoma, Washington. And this gal was crying, and I was, I'm an empath. I love people. And so, I just it was like, hey, is everything okay? What's going on? And she said, well, my internet sales manager just quit and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, well, and this was in the course of 30 seconds, right? Like elevator ride. And I said, I love people. I love cars. I love technology. So I will come and I will help you out. And then once you find somebody, you can send me down the road and I'll go back on vacation. Well, that actually ended up lasting about 3 years. I was at a little Chevy store outside of Tacoma, Washington. It's no longer there as what the name was before. But I ended up running the internet department. We went from 8 cars a month to 32 cars a month. And then there was this thing called a financial meltdown in 2009. Long story short, I moved on from there to a really great dealership based out of Seattle, Dealership Group. Am I allowed to?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So I moved on in 2010 to work for the Car Pros Automotive Group, the Phillips family. Great people, lovely people. Started out as their digital marketing manager, and then just through a series of events, ended up not just working at their Seattle location, but I ended up going and working in their California locations as well. They had, at that point, a couple Kia stores in Southern California, Carson, or Huntington Beach, and then I officed out of their Tacoma, Washington store. And it was great. The Phillips family are wonderful people. Matthew is the CEO of the company now. He holds a very special place in my heart. Matthew, this one's for you. But, they were gracious and great people. One day I got a call from Brian Pash, and Brian, we had talked a little bit about an opportunity. He knew my background was in BDC and internet and how well I did at the Chevy store. And he said, hey, I'm doing this consulting gig, him and Mark McGurran. Again, 2 really great guys. And would you want to come and work and take a client in Minneapolis that is doing, at that point, they were 14 stores. You want to do a 14 store BDC install? And I said, well, I'm really happy doing what I'm doing, but I need to get to that next level of my career. I went and had a very difficult conversation with the Phillips family. They wished me very well, and released me to go work for Brian. So it's, again, I love this story. I truly love my story.
It's awesome, dude. I mean,
yeah,
it's like, I mean, if you just turned around because you forgot a cup of coffee or something like that, and you had missed that elevator, you wouldn't have. How long in the business now? How many years?
I've been in the business now for just a little over 16 years.
See, look, so you were literally 30 seconds away from not having this 16-year career. If you had just dropped your keys or forgot your coffee and missed that elevator, none of this would have happened. That's
100%. And it just goes. And there's another story, a bigger story that I'm excited to share amidst all this. It has to do with my career, but we'll save that for a couple more minutes. So
I'm actually so glad this is the time we get to connect, because you've done some really cool stuff in the automotive industry, but I can tell right now, just talking to you for the last few minutes, like this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems to be like probably the point in your career you're most jacked about. Like,
I'm to be completely honest, I'm super excited, but I'm super nervous, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But so
I do want to get into, because I love finding, like, you will find out that I go squirrel sometimes. Okay.
Sure.
So, like, I see a squirrel. So I've been looking at the logo on your hat, and I just now connected to what that is. I'm like, dude, that's so cool. Love the logo.
Thank you.
Props to you on it. Thanks.
Yeah, it was a very quick pivot a couple weeks ago, and we can get into that too as we continue.
We are definitely going to get into it.
But yeah, for sure. Dude, this is so great. Like, I can't stop smiling. Like, this super. We're talking about a couple things I'm super passionate about. I'm super passionate about my story. I can give you my testimonial now. Like, I can share what I've been through. And at the same time, like, we can dive deep into my weaknesses, right? We all have them. And, podcasts obviously are, yes, but at the same time, like, I'm not going to lie, man, I've had a lot of tears. I've had a lot of nights of sleepless nights, because we have those stories. But going back to my story here real quick. So, so Brian Pash, Mark McGurran, 14 store group in Minneapolis. I was flying out here to Minneapolis on Mondays. I was flying home on Fridays. Amidst all that, I was going to Louisville for a couple of days, or I was going to Orem, Utah. I had some clients all over the place, a little bit in New Jersey. So I was gone all the time. And it was a period in my life where I was able to do it. I was single. The thing about me is passion drives me. I don't, and I'm not talking about Brian Passion. I'm talking about passion drives me. And I can't tell you how passionate I am about the industry, to where I love talking about it. So anyway, like 3 or 4 weeks in on my 14-week consulting gig, the previous CEO of Maury's Automotive Group here in Minneapolis, Carl Schmidt, another great guy, pulled me aside. He said, hey, Freedman, why don't you move out here and work for me? And I said, no, I'm not moving. I never woke up one day saying Minneapolis was going to be a spot I was going to live. I mean, it just, coming from Seattle to live in Minneapolis, I'm like, not so much. And then 2 weeks later, he came to me again and said, hey, Freedman, you're going to come work for me. And I said, no. And he said, okay. He's like, well, then you're going to have to quit, or I'm going to get you fired, but you're coming to work for me. I was like, okay, well, maybe this is my calling. Again, one of those elevator moments.
Yep.
Like, so I've always taken things as kind of supposed to happen, meant to happen. So I said, okay, Carl, whatever. So I ended up moving out here to Minneapolis in October of 2012. So almost 11 years ago. I'll tell you what, man, my life here, I feel like I had a bunch of people waiting for me to get here. Like,
you had a series of elevator moments.
Yes.
That is what it is. Like, and I love that. And I love that, because I think anybody out there watching, listening right now, they've been in the car business, and, they either started when they never thought they were started. I know some people accidentally walked into the wrong building. That's how they got their job. I know other people that just, needed some part-time thing, and that's how they did it. I personally got conned into it. It was a bet. I had a friend of mine that was actually selling cars. I said, look, if you can sell cars and make that much money, I can easily do twice as much because you're an idiot. And he's like, oh yeah, you want to make a bet? I was like, oh yeah, I'll make a bet. And he's like, training starts next week if you want to show up. And I sure in hell did. And he was there. He was gone 3 months later. I've been there now 23 years in the business. Yep. So, it's like, it's these elevator moments. And I love that. And I love your passion. And I'm so glad we were able to connect. We have some amazing topics we're going to go over. To kind of kick off our first topic, which is one we actually we reconnected about online because I made a post recently. We're going to talk about a dirty word.
Ooh.
It's a dirty word.
Does it start with an L?
It's a 4-letter dirty word. Ooh. Now, understand, we're in the automotive industry, right? So the automotive industry is made up of 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter words. But this one I find is the dirtiest.
Dirty.
Dirty. All right, we're talking about the word, and I'm going to see if someone goes beep. Do I have a beep here? I'll make someone give me a beep. No, the word lead.
Yeah.
We got to remove that from our vocabulary.
Absolutely.
And me and you connected on that. So I'd love to get your thoughts. All right. Because I think it's a mindset shift. It's just, I get sticky on language. I know you get sticky on language. So why do we need to remove the word lead, all right, from the dealership? Love to get your thoughts, Ben.
Yeah. So I think it goes back to the history of that word, right? So I remember when my aunt was doing commercial real estate and she's like, hey, my neighbor gave me a lead on somebody that maybe in the market. Again, the keyword is maybe. And not like, here's my number, call me maybe, but maybe in the market. And, when you think of the word lead, I think of like, hey, I think my neighbor's in the market for a car, you should give them a call. So more of a cold opportunity, right? So every time I hear the word leads, like my CRM lead count is down, this and that, I cringe. And I cringe because these are people who have cost you as the dealer money. You spend thousands of dollars on your website, on SEM, SEO, third parties. They have decided to engage and express interest in one of your products or services. These people are not I think I'm in the market. These are people that have engaged in a product or service that you are offering using your money. This is an opportunity to do business. These are opportunities. These are e-guests. They're on your click and mortar assets, whether it's your website or, again, a VDP or an SRP on a third-party site that you are paying for. These are opportunities.
Well, and I think what it is as an industry, what we've done is we've kind of we took the word lead and just kind of manipulated it. And here, for any agencies out there that might be listening or watching, it's your fault. And I've been a part of that too. I've been an agency for a long time. So it's like what we did is we took something that was originally an opportunity and then we turned it into something that you can buy and sell and trade like a commodity, right? So like, I remember, maybe I'm aging myself right now, but I remember, right, some of the very early reports that we got from our dealer.com website, all right, early 2000s, all right, didn't actually have the word lead on them. They were online inquiries or online form fills. That's actually what they were measured as. That's what we measured them as. And then at some point in time, and this is the whole industry, the whole vertical, right? We shifted to utilizing this word lead and we turned it into a commodity, not necessarily an opportunity. And that's what I think we fundamentally messed up.
Right.
Is because now it's all about the dollars, not the person behind it.
Absolutely.
Let me give you your thoughts. Would you think the same?
No, 100%. I was talking to somebody last night on the phone about this, and we have to look at them as an opportunity to do business. Do we have showroom leads? I mean, I go in my CRM. Every morning I pick this beautiful thing up. By the way, there's the logo again. And I look at CRMs, and I never see showroom leads. Why do we not call them showroom leads then? We call them opportunities because they are there. They have engaged with us on our physical showroom floor. So if they're engaging with us on our click and mortar business or our SRP or VDP on our third parties, isn't that an opportunity? I think it's an opportunity.
100%. And I also think it's the way that we kind of like the word lead, I think today in our vertical implies the intent to purchase, right? Like I think a lot of dealerships out there see it that way. They perceive it that way. Well, it's a lead. They have the intent to purchase, but it's not. It's an opportunity to have a conversation.
Yes.
Inside the conversation is where you might be able to create a lead.
100%. A lead or a lead is an opportunity to engage. And when you engage is when you really start to show the value that your dealership offers. You know, nobody can really see from a two-dimensional SRP, VDP website, etc., the value. It takes engagement. They're literally saying, I want help. Can you help me?
Oh, you're 100% right. These are opportunities to get into conversations.
Yes.
Conversations actually end up turning into a lead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you're right. It's a mindset thing. And I got to be honest with you. The last few years, look, there's some great operators out there. So if you're a great operator, okay, don't listen to this next part. All right, but for the majority of the industry, and yes, I'm gonna put a little tough love out there. You can suck. All right, at engaging with customers. You know, especially over the last few years. You know, is the car available? No.
Yeah.
That's it. So when would that be coming in? And you're lucky if it shows up in like maybe 9 months. You want to put a deposit down? All right, thanks. You know, like like engage, have a real conversation. Can you imagine? I almost kind of think sometimes of like dinner parties, right? Like if salespeople engage with people at a dinner party, they engage with them now. Like they're just it's crappy conversation, it's crappy engagement, right? Like
Yeah.
this person, like I don't know, maybe it's the old school sales dog in me, right? But like I actually want to connect with the person before I sell them something. You tell me if I'm crazy and I'm trying to kick it old school. What do you think?
I just think it's so interesting, you know, the fear of engagement now. So, you know, a best practice that I put on myself is anybody who goes to look at my LinkedIn page, which we'll, you know, get into that in a second. But anytime somebody looks at my LinkedIn page, I view that as somebody knocking on my door, right? So I will always send them a message. Hey, thanks for stopping by my LinkedIn page. If you have any questions about anything I've done, please let me know. I'm happy to help. You know, so it's like the people though have a fear of engagement. And I just don't understand where that fear came from when you're in a sales environment.
Well, you know what? Like I said, I think the art of, and I actually think this is leadership, and where this is actually perfect because we are going to get into that topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the decay of leadership in our industry, all right, that has led us to the point where we are not training or developing our team to actually have a real conversation and connect with people.
Right.
You know, it's like I think there's too many managers out there. There's not enough leaders out there. But that is a topic we're going to get into. But I think before, because something like I said, I go squirrel. Sometimes before we get into that,
The squirrel.
I know we wanted to talk, and I can't believe we're talking about this, but I think I did want to talk about this. Is we did have this as a topic about merchandising inventory. Now, it's crazy to think this is 2023 and we're still having this effing conversation.
Right.
All right. But I think similar to just, you know, piss poor engagement are like, I don't know about you, but I'm back in market for a car. So maybe this is why I'm feeling this way. I'm back in market for a car, moved to a new country, or not to a new country, moved from Canada back to the US. Time for me to get another vehicle, And I'm just telling you, like, just the online merchandising and just the general content out there sucks.
Yeah.
It's too much like, here's a car, here's a price. If you don't want it, I don't care.
Right.
You know, but I'd love to get your thoughts.
No, 100%. You know, we were just talking a little bit about dealers spending thousands of dollars on, you know, SEM, SEO, their website, third parties, SRPs, VDPs, et cetera, right? But they also spend money on technology to merchandise these cars. And I firmly believe, based on hours of looking at SRPs, VDPs, that half, if not 3/4 of the technology is not being used, right? And when the technology is not being used, the opportunities that are created from the website, the SRPs, the VDPs, slowly declines, right? So I'll give you an example. If I'm looking for a $50,000 used SUV, let's say I'm looking for a Lincoln Aviator. Okay, my wife drives a Lincoln Aviator. We love it. And I'm looking at $50,000, and there's one down the street, and it says, okay, it has the ultimate package too. It has new tires, new brakes, fully serviced, rear DVD, sunroof, and I see what I'm getting for $50,000 versus fresh inventory, call now.
Exactly.
That's $50,000. So, you know, a part of my journey, we go back to talk about my journey for a second, was working for an automotive SaaS company and inventory management technology. And our platform which served one of the top 3 dealership groups in the country on an enterprise level, taught these dealers how to merchandise their inventory. There's 5 questions that need to be in the comments section, in the dealer's notes, whatever the platform calls it. There are 5 questions that the consumer is asking themselves when they're looking for inventory. Okay.
Mhm.
And, people can contact me about those 5 questions or go through my LinkedIn, because I've pasted them several times. But, in reality, when people are shopping for a car, they're using their logical sense. When people are buying a car, they're using their emotional sense.
Yep.
So your inventory, your merchandising has to answer these logical questions that help validate the value of your vehicle.
And that's that perception. And that once you get to the point of perception, then you can actually get to the point where there's emotional connection, right? So I have a perceived value, right? The perceived value is a logical thing. Like perception is illogical. Like, okay, I
Yes.
perceive that there's a logic behind it, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it's always true, but in their heads there's logic. Then once you perceive past that, then it becomes emotional, and that's where we get into the story, right?
100%.
Every consumer out there, I don't care what product is, and if you're watching and listening right now, you're a consumer. You do the exact same thing. All right, you buy the story before you buy the product. Okay, whatever that story is, and I think we in the automotive industry, if I'm thinking about stories, I think the Jeep Wrangler is probably one of the best examples of a story out there, right? Every single advertisement out there, you will find that Jeep Wrangler going up the side of a mountain or going through a river, but over 90+% of Jeep Wranglers sold never leave the asphalt.
Yep.
Because you buy into the story that vehicle can do that, not the reality that you are going to do that. And so it becomes this emotional thing. But if you don't have that content there's no story, right? Then how are you going to put that out there? I find that when I'm merchandising, there are at least 2 stories that have to come out, right? There's the story of the car, and then there's the story of my dealership.
Sure.
Right? And look, the story of my dealership is not the fact that I'm family owned and I'm number 1 in CSI. Just want to make a pause for dramatic purposes there. If anybody's watching and listening right now, if you think your story is based on the fact that you're family owned and you're number 1 in CSI, nobody cares. You need to actually give them a real reason to care. And the real reason to care is not what you do, but why you do it, the way you do it.
Right.
That's how people are going to connect with you.
Yeah.
And I know you're super passionate about helping people identify their why they do it the way they do it. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on kind of like how can we build out, this messaging or the story of, what makes us unique compared to all of our competition.
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. If you ask anybody that works in a dealer, whether they're a salesperson or a member of the leadership team, again, there's the word leadership versus management. Member of the leadership team, why should I buy from your store? If they can't answer it within a minute, it's probably going to be a gut check, right? Like, that's probably the most well-known elevator pitch that any dealership employee should have is, why should I buy from your dealership? Because at the end of the day, like you said, family owned and operated. Cool. Great Google reviews. Cool. But what really is the meat and potatoes behind why we should buy from the dealership? Tell me the story. Been in business for 100 years. We've taken great care of generations. Talk about the quality of the experience. One of the dealership groups that I had the pleasure of working with when I was in the technology business was Shop, right? And Shop's got probably one of the best and coolest, why buys. One person, one price, 1 hour guaranteed.
Yes.
And as we all now use time as a commodity, right? We all view time as a commodity and a currency. That is probably one of the most robust statements out there.
100%. And the reason for that is because it's real value. It goes beyond perception and creates real value, right? Like, yeah. So, I mean, when we're thinking of merchandising and content, and it is the first point where you can have the opportunity to generate an opportunity for your dealership, is they need to be able to buy into a story. So yeah. We'll leave that there. I think we could probably go farther on it, but I know we got about another 6 minutes, and I wanted to make sure that we did finish off, because we mentioned a little bit when just a few minutes ago we started going down that path. I do that sometimes. Is leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I still think the reason, that a lot of these things are not being done. So the reason that, we're treating people like leads and not opportunities. The reason why we're not, we're not merchandising or creating content around our inventory online. I think the reasons we're not doing a lot of this stuff is because of a lack of leadership.
Yeah.
And, specifically, leading the expectation versus just managing the expectation. And I know you've posted on this, you've talked about this multiple times, so I'd love to kind of get your thought, the difference between leading the expectation versus managing the expectation.
Yeah, 100%. So we all know that setting an example is really the key to upward mobility, and firmly believing, in your heart that what you're doing is for the better of everybody. So, I had mentioned on LinkedIn the other day, somebody had said something about a desk manager, and I was polite about it, but I said a desk manager are the four legs that holds the desk up, because that is what a desk manager is. It holds the stability of the desk. A sales manager or a leader is somebody who is at the desk ready to help the sales team members generate revenue for themselves and income. So there is a difference between a manager and a leader. The manager is somebody who tells somebody to do something. The leader is the one that says, let's go do it together. Let me show you how to do this. I don't care how many times I have to show you. We're going to do it together over and over and over again.
Well, and to lead that expectation, the expectation has to be completely clear. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. The difference between expectations and performance. You know what I mean? Expectations really kind of goes, what am I expected to execute on, which then goes to the formula you mentioned. I want you to mention so everyone can hear it. Is it the people plus what, the process? Let's dive a little deeper in that, because a lot of times we say expectations, and I think for a lot of managers, what they think is, all right, the 200 cars they got to deliver this month.
Yeah.
Right. But I think a leader thinks of expectations, and they think about the 17 steps that have to be executed to perfection, or the 17 processes that have to be executed to perfection to achieve the 200. But I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
So the equation is very simple. It's people plus performance equals profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people plus performance equals profit. But then when you look at performance, right, you have processes, and then Jason, you and I bond over technology. So you have the technology, you kind of sprinkle the technology in, but ultimately it's the people plus performance equals profit. And performance isn't something you can just say, it's the first of the month, go get it. And then at the end of the month, it's like, WTF, why didn't we hit our numbers? Good leadership will have great one-on-ones weekly with their people. They'll acknowledge and analyze where they are, where the people are, and then coach and counsel up, right? So we always want to manage people up. We never want to have to manage people out. These are people. These are people that have families, right? So we never want to manage people out. We need to lead. We need to be leaders by offering that mentorship. And know for a fact, I know for me, like I didn't really ever receive formalized training in my first automotive job back in 2007. I had to learn for it myself, but I also love cars and people. So you just never know who you're going to be a leader of, and whose life you're going to change by being their leader.
I'm 100% with you on that. And I think for any of the other principals out there that may be watching or listening right now, I think you need to ask yourself, do you have leadership on your team, or do you have management on your team? Because I'll tell you right now, for the last 3 years, you've been able to get away with a manager, as long as he's got a finger, or she's got a finger, she can come in and flip a light switch on. You've been able to sell cars. All right. We're getting to a time where like it's changed. Our operations, and we need to get serious about leadership, not just managing. It's not, look, you can't just manage your way to profitability anymore.
Right. No, 100%. And, I would say, Jason, to your point, you said, well, dealers look and see if you have leaders or managers. Expenses are going through the roof, floor plan interest, and, all of with inventory levels going back up. And, if you allow mediocrity, that's just, we talked about the why buys. That's almost what becomes your why buy. A personal story real quick. My grandfather, who is my best friend, anybody who knows me knows I will always talk about how much I love my grandfather. He's the best person in the world, my best friend.
Awesome.
He has he bought about 3 years ago, he bought a luxury vehicle. And that luxury vehicle is in for service right now. And one of that brand's promises is you drop your car off, you get a service loaner. He dropped his car off 3 weeks ago. Didn't hear from anybody about a rental. I called the service manager twice. Didn't get a call back. Is that a manager or is that a leader?
Exactly.
What is that telling me about if I want to go and buy a car from that dealership? And it was a $65,000 luxury car, So let's talk about management versus leadership. That is the first thing I would suggest we have to look at.
Well, and it is, and you're to ride the next 3 years, because what's happened is that rock got dropped in the pond 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now the ripple effect from that rock being dropped, all right, is now being felt. All right. I mean, look, I've been in the car business for a long time. I mean, just the economy of things with current interest rates, and yes, you're beginning to see some subvented rates come back, but still, it's not quite there yet. I mean, most of the people that have been in sales right now have never had to have the conversation of double-digit interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I remember when the single-digit interest rate was a big deal,
right?
And the bottom line is, cars you sold prior to the pandemic are going to come back, and with the current rates that they are and the current pricing of vehicles they are, that car is going to be $200 to $250 more a month.
Correct.
Ballpark. A little less, maybe a little bit more, and it's like, it's going to take a leader, all right, to lead the team through the next few years of sales, all right, not just someone who's just going to manage the team. And then I think the big difference between a leadership manager, if you guys are out there thinking and asking this, is does this person have the ability to grow the business or maintain the business? And sometimes you need a manager just to maintain it. But I think right now we need leaders.
But I think, Jason, at the same time, do they have the heart to grow the business?
Well, that's true.
We all have the skill, right? We're all in sales.
Sometimes
we all have the mouthpieces, but do we have the heart? Do we have the heart to help people so that, at the end of the day, like we today are growing the future leaders for tomorrow, right? So do we have the heart on top of the skill to be a leader, to create for future leaders?
You're 100% right, guys. Look, I know we're getting towards the tail end. We are at the tail end, actually, of our conversation today. I think this whole subject of leadership could be another podcast in its own. And Ben, that's not a bad idea. We may have to do a follow-up to this.
Yep, absolutely.
But before I let you go, we've covered some seriously great topics today. And for everybody out there that's watching or listening to this who would love to connect with you, follow along with your journey, or just learn a bit more about what you're up to these days, what's the best way to do so?
The best way is just, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And I'm very passionate about sharing my perspective, sharing my history, sharing just my passion for the automotive industry. It's the only industry I know. I did mortgages in culinary school, but spending 16 years in automotive, both in dealership and in consulting roles. It's what I know. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what my heart truly tells me is my calling.
Man, I love it. And hey, I encourage you guys, connect with Ben. Amazing guy. Really appreciate you taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Jason.
Thanks, Ben.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.